Item number 10 is application number 21/1209/FH, Princess Parade Promenade, Princess Parade Hythe, and it's for the formation of a new badger set, including associated earthworks. Can you remind me who was going to do this? Oh, sorry, they said I've got it down here, but lost in the paperwork. So the set patching is going to take us through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is the application for badger set at Princess Parade. Just before I start, since the supplementary sheets were published, we've received one further objection from a member of public. So in respect to this application, the development that requires planning permission is the construction of an earth mound that would incorporate chambers and pipe runs for the badger set. The principle of an artificial set has already been established under the previous grant of planning permission for the overall site, and as such can be constructed under that planning permission without a further application. However, the reason for this separate application is to enable the set to be constructed in advance of the implementation of the wider planning permission. So this is the site here with the location of the set, and with a slightly larger scale map so you can see it. You've got the two footbridges across the canal there and the footpath leading to the promenade, and the site is in here to the south of the boundary with the scheduled monument. And you can see the site there in an aerial photograph. So this shows sections through the proposed mound. It would be 23.5 metres long and 12 metres wide at the base, tapering to a level top 1.5 metres high above the existing ground level, which would allow 1 metre clearance above the chamber area to the top of the mound. It is proposed to be constructed of clean soil, which would either be imported or soil taken from the site and certified clean. And you can see here sections through the mound in the other direction. And this shows the set area, the area of the mound here, in the centre of the, roughly in the centre of the application site area. The boundary around the site, dotted here, would be cleft chestnut fencing with badger access gates to protect the area around the site, to provide a 30-metre buffer zone around the set during construction of the overall development and until the scrub landscaping is established to prevent and discourage human activity across the site. Following the completion of the construction of the set, the area cleared for the set and the access to it would be turfed or seeded with a grass and wildflower mix, and additional scrub planting added around the site. A number of concerns have been raised by interested parties regarding the suitability of this particular location for a badger set, the likelihood of badgers relocating to the new set, and the impact of the location in terms of the road, proximity to the proposed road and the existing golf course in terms of the health and welfare of badgers using the set. Badgers have significant protection in law, and the protection extends to their sets. In order to interfere with or close the existing badger sets on the wider site, a site licence is required from Natural England, and such a licence has been applied for, and the main considerations by Natural England in respect of the granting of the licence are the suitability of the mitigation measures, and in this case the artificial set, for as suitable alternative badger habitat and badger accommodation. So before any existing set would be allowed to be closed, after Natural England have given consideration to the suitable site for the replacement set, then the existing sets would not be able to be closed until Natural England were certain and it had been demonstrated that badgers were found the new set. So the suitability of the replacement set, including its size, location and materials, and the position of it, are all matters that are considered under the licence application, as well as the suitability of the accommodation in terms of the size of the set and its location within existing badger territory. And supporting surveys and information will have been submitted with the licence application. Given that, and in addition to that, a fundamental principle of the planning system is that it should not replicate or duplicate other legislation, in this case Natural England's wildlife legislation. Therefore, the suitability of the proposed set, how the existing set would be closed, how the badgers would find a new set, and the location of a new set are not material considerations for this application. This application is purely for the construction simply of an earth mound with chambers within it. While the strength of local concern is understood, when determining this application, members must act within the boundaries of planning legislation. And what the committee is essentially being asked to consider is the construction of the earth mound. Therefore, as set out in the report, the relevant material considerations are the impact on the scheduled monument, the visual amenity of the proposed earthworks, contamination issues in relation to the site, impact of the proposed works on, or the proposed mounds and earthworks on other protected species using the site, and any flood risk issues and maintenance of the Royal Military Canal Bank. In terms of the scheduled monument, all of the works are outside of the scheduled area, and Historic England has no objection either to the works or to their impact on the setting of the canal. In terms of visual impact, this is a fairly low-level mound, so visual impact will be minimal. Areas cleared for its construction will be grassed or turfed over and planted with scrub vegetation to reflect the existing vegetation, which will provide any screening necessary to the mound. In terms of contamination, the mound would be constructed of clean soil, and the contamination report submitted with the application has been assessed by an external independent consultant, and the contamination levels identified around this part of the site are of similar amount and nature to contamination where existing sets are located elsewhere throughout the site. So in effect, really, this set in effect will be better because it will be constructed of clean soil. In terms of ecology, the ecological method statement and a construction environmental management plan, which would normally be required by condition but we have asked for up front, was submitted with the application and sets out other habitats likely to be affected by the works to form the mound during the construction and longer term. KCC Ecology is satisfied with the information provided and the mitigation proposed. In terms of the final matter, flood risk, the site is not within flood zone, and the proposal includes gates in the 30-metre buffer fencing to provide maintenance access along the bank of the canal, and the Environment Agency has no objection. Therefore, the proposed development is considered acceptable in respect of the material planning considerations that apply, and the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out at the end of the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Lisette. We have 3 speakers on this application, and the first speaker is Christopher Farrell, a local resident, to speak against the application. Mr. Farrell.
It's Christine Farrell.
I beg your pardon, it's a typo on here. Definitely. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. Currently, the badgers live away from human interference on 8 hectares of land. We know that Lloyd Boar have identified 5 setts, 3 of which they claim are active. Footage on social media suggests that there are more active sets than have been reported. I have emailed your planning department weeks ago in accordance with their instructions regarding this, but unsurprisingly have had no reply. We know the badger sets are spread out over the site. The intention is to forcibly remove the badgers and destroy their sets, corralling them into one artificial set at the west end of the site. It has been conveniently overlooked that the set is going to be built right next to the polluted attenuation swamp, which will take the runoff from the concreted development and the new road. The swamp will be fenced off to protect the public from the pollution, but it's where Lloyd Boar expect the badgers to forage. The report also says that the badgers will be at liberty to cross to the other side of the canal and forage in people's gardens. This is far from the sensitive ecology that we have been promised. It is convenient, it ticks a box, but it's wrong. Presently, the badgers have no need to cross any roads. They have what they require where they are. As soon as they are moved, the loss of foraging is going to force them out onto the Prince's Parade Road, onto Twist Road, and onto the busy 259. And this is a tragedy waiting to happen and on your conscience. The set is going to be made with imported topsoil, as we've heard, and pipework. The badgers will decide where the tunnels go, not the planners. I've had sight of a report from Aaron Cousins to FHDC stating that Lloyd Boar found that the ground beneath the set is contaminated with asbestos and copper, such that vegetation will not be able to grow above it. So to say that contamination isn't an issue is false. This is just a paper exercise between Lloyd Boar and your officials. It's a tick box exercise and it's greenwashing. It's about getting the animals off the land and getting it built on as quickly as possible at whatever the cost. And nobody knows the cost. On Sunday the 15th of August, over 1,000 people protested along Prince's Parade. They were not rent-a-rabble. You could see from the TV footage that they were the old, wheelchair-bound families and children, people that are passionate about this piece of land. None of you here, with the exception of John Wing, represent the people of Hythe or even live in Hythe, yet you are judge, jury and executioner. I know, and we know, that a lot of you are doing the bidding of your leader, David Monk, but he will leave you at the next election. And if you're lucky enough to be re-elected, you will still have this debacle to sort out. Thank you. Hythe has a unique history, its own culture, and Prince's Parade is part of that. So please, please, save the badgers and save Prince's Parade. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker, and I hope I've got this right, is Councillor Jim Martin on behalf of Hythe Town Council to speak on the application. And as you know, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good evening, councillors. I choose to speak to you this evening as a representative of Hythe Town Council, as Chair of Plans and Works at Hythe Town Council, to convey the strength of the feeling regarding this application on Prince's Parade in Hythe, and to ask you councillors to listen to the people of Hythe. I've been asked to speak in this capacity by Malcolm Dearden, a former Conservative District Councillor and Cabinet Member, who wants me to convey earnestly to this committee that Hythe Town Council have unanimously objected to this application, not once, but twice. Hythe Town Council also feel that the quality of this application is unacceptable. The drawings and words in your pack are wrong. The 30-metre exclusion zone is promised in the text, while the drawing only shows 11.3 metres. The ecology report fails to identify settee, and the planning application form is incomplete. In addition, the Lloyd Board report dated the 26th of July says that they were instructed to carry out a badger survey in West Malling, indicating a cut and paste approach to this exercise. Members will note that question 24 on the planning application has been answered as a yes, but the box requiring an explanation to a positive answer has not been completed. The application is wrong and incomplete and should be deferred until the details are corrected and the application is complete. Given the decision by the Secretary of State to hold a public inquiry into the road closure application at Prince's Parade, this planning application is premature and should be deferred until the Secretary of State has come to a decision. Sadly, this council and its processes, including planning, have lost all credibility in Hythe because of the intransigent approach taken on Prince's Parade. Indeed, others claim that it is more than intransigence and stubbornness. The petition to the Department of Transport to ask for a public inquiry on the road closure application, led by Rory Love and Andy Weatherhead, both KCC Conservative councillors, is primarily concerned with the misinformation issued by this council. To quote directly, "Such are the errors, misrepresentations and avoidance of issues in the report commissioned by Folkestone and Hythe District Council in response to the objectors." To quote Jonathan Holborough, a former chair of the Folkestone and Hythe Conservative Association, writing in the Kent Messenger, when he said, "The council has a lot to answer for, including the long-running and sometimes insensitive inability to listen to the people of Hythe." I'll finish my sentence if I may. The current administration will soon end, but Prince's Parade development will hang like an albatross around the neck of the council for many years to come. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Mike Bottomley, who is the agent. Mr. Bottomley. And you've heard the rules, you will have 3 minutes.
Thanks very much. The hybrid planning application for Prince's Parade was approved by committee in 2018, and the development is now being progressed and implementation is scheduled to take place next year, including the infrastructure works for the access road and landscaping. As part of the infrastructure works, the badger sets currently on the site need to be closed and the badgers moved to a new artificial set. On the identification, the badgers identification identified the wider site, 2 are in use and 1 is the main breeding set. The principle of closing and moving the badger set has already been approved as part of the original hybrid planning permission. The detailed planning application, separate to the hybrid permission, has been submitted at this stage in the programme in order to secure Natural England licensing and allow sufficient time for the badgers currently inhabiting the site to migrate to their new home before the current badger set is closed. The site is currently comprised of an overgrown area of shrubs and scrub and ground cover trees, and the proposed earthworks will include a new earth mound 1.5 metres tall with the chestnut fence to provide a protective zone around the new set. The proposed location of the new set has direct access for the badgers to retained areas for foraging on the golf course to the west, the trains to the canal bank, and the northern canal bank, which can feasibly be accessed via the footbridges that cross the canal, connecting to the gardens beyond. Separate to the planning process, the decision for relocating and closing of the current set needs to be approved by licence by Natural England, who need to be satisfied that the proposed mitigation and compensation is appropriate, including the size and location of the replacement set. The supporting Badger survey, ecological method statement, site investigation report and construction environmental management plan have all been reviewed and signed off by Kent County Council ecologists who have no objection to the planning proposals. Kent County Council Archaeology, Natural England, the Environment Agency, Historical England and the Council's contamination consultant and the Environmental Protection Officer have all reviewed the proposals and have no objection. On this basis, I encourage the members to vote in line with your officer's recommendations and approve the scheme. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillors. Councillor Trelaw.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wondering, what is this witchcraft? What is this exclusion zone? That is not. Can we please see on the slides the cross section? Well, yeah. Well, no. That's been elongated compared to the one in that I've seen in the report. Can we get the cross section? There's one cross section that shows that the edge of this set is 11 metres to the tow path rather, and in the other direction. So I suppose this is the north-south cross section, and in the other direction, the plan I've seen shows 33 metres, but that's to the far end of the set. From the nearest edge, it's only 22 metres. Now, that's 11 metres on one side and then 22 metres to another side, which from the look of the plans is where the proposed road is going in. And you might say you're going to construct chestnut fencing to avoid any sort of disturbance with potential road building, but if there's utilities along there, and it seems like we're shooting ourselves in the legislative foot already. The Wildlife and Countryside Act defines that 30-metre zone, and I know we were told that we don't need to consider it, but that 30 metres is based on scientific reality that badgers burrow. And when it comes to planning decisions, we're allowed to consider objective scientific reality in the behaviour of badgers. Now, 11 metres to a path where you've got people and dog walkers, and then 21 metres to what could be potentially a very busy road. That is not a 30-metre exclusion zone. Just the pure basis of that, disregarding the wider debate on this is not an adequate site for these badgers, sort of in the near and the long term. And you can say there's no objections from Natural England, but no objection means they haven't actually looked at it and they give a stock response. And I'm not satisfied with the depth of ecological reporting on this. We've cited the ecological mitigation report, but that talks about the surveying work. I want to see it presented at committee, a statement from consultant ecologists saying this is adequate. And even if so, what fills me with absolute despair is that these sorts of applications have come to committees, year in, year out, and since the 1970s, this country has seen pretty much a 50% depletion in its wildlife. Now, if statutory or government bodies were doing their job and protecting our ecology, we wouldn't be in that state. So I find this twisting of the site plans, the desperation to get this through is absolutely appalling, given the light that this council has declared a climate and ecological emergency this is not the sort of application that comes from an applicant who really acknowledges the dire situation our ecology is in this country and globally. And there's, until I see absolutely robust evidence or a site that is so clearly sort of aligned with ecological principles, you know, for the badgers, not for the convenience of this council, I'm not going to be satisfied to support anything like this. I propose that we defer until something more robust comes to the table, something that's more in line with our commitments, claiming to have declared an ecological emergency. Otherwise, this is just, it appears blatant greenwashing. So I propose that we defer this application until we can see an application that satisfies our commitments as a council for ecology.
Thank you, Councillor Trelaw. Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Fuller. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. Badgers are quite rightly protected under law. They're one of our most charismatic wild animals, and they're beautiful to watch, and they have a right to be here. We're told that there needs to be a 30-metre exclusion zone. That's not a 30-metre exclusion zone. You're talking about putting wooden stakes, I'm guessing, around. Guess what? Badgers burrow. They're going to come out. They're going to escape because they're going to feel that they're corralled in there. And these are wild animals that can be rather grumpy. They've got very, very sharp teeth, and they've got very, very sharp claws. And you're talking about a path running about 11 metres away from these animals. It's not far enough from people, and it's not far enough from dogs. This is going to cause problems. It will cause problems for the badgers, and it will also possibly cause problems to the humans and the dogs. I'm absolutely concerned on how close this is going to be to the road.
Thank you. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might be wrong, but I thought we were simply approving the building of a set in this context. Whether the badgers would actually want to live there is down to the badgers, and you can't guarantee. I have lots of badgers on the marsh, and they do what they like. But I thought it was just not looking at just looking at the detail of the building, approving that of the set.
I also understood that. I'll ask Lisette if she could answer that.
Yes, the application and all that's for consideration is the construction of the mound. If Natural England aren't satisfied that the mitigation proposed in the form of the replacement artificial set is satisfactory, they won't grant a licence for the closure of the existing set. It's as simple as that. Natural England will assess, because they are the experts on this, whether or not this is suitable mitigation for the badgers. That's not something we're considering. All we're considering is this earth mound, because that's all under the planning legislation we are able to consider, because the issue regarding badgers is quite rightly to be determined by the experts, which are Natural England. And in terms of a degree of satisfaction that it is the suitable location, KCC Ecology have looked at it. I've discussed it with them. They've talked to me about it, and they're satisfied that it's likely to be acceptable by Natural England because it's a suitable location. Just to clarify on the cleft fencing, the idea of that is not to keep the badgers in; it's to keep the construction activity away from the area of the mound while the wider construction works are taking place.
Thank you. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Lisette, for that. In my ward, we have a road which is called Brack Road or Brack Street, which Brack is the old word for badger, and they are under the road, and the road is in a terrible state. I work with Natural England. They are very rigorous in this. They do protect the badgers. And I've been on this case now for 5 years to try and get this road repaired. But the badgers will not be disturbed. Only if the site gets left or something will happen. But we monitor the site every 6 months, and it's very rigorous with Natural England. But I thought this was simply to just to approve the building of the mound, not whether the badgers would like it or not.
Right, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Well, thank you, Chair. Well, we've been hearing that this is just about this application then. Well, let's take a look at this application. We've already heard tonight there's a part of it where it's been ticked that there is some sort of relationship with the council, but no information what this relationship is. I'm not happy about this application. I think it should be deferred to another meeting where we can have a proper look at it. There's big holes in this application. I'm not talking about Badger Sat or anything. Just this application. It's what we're talking about tonight, nothing else. And this application, I believe, should be deferred until this box is ticked. Why is it ticked? Is he the council brother? Is he Mr. Monk's brother? We don't know. This committee deserves to know. This is what the committee sits here for, to make sure these applications are correct. And I think this application is incorrect, and that's why it should be deferred. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Well, we actually have one application to defer it, which, if I've remembered correctly, was proposed by Councillor Trelaw and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Councillor Trelaw, we will need a reason. If we're going to go against the officer's reputation, we need a reason.
I think the difficulty is, what are we deferring it for? Because there's no further information we can reasonably ask for in order to assess this. You're being asked to assess a mound. That's a difficulty. So because all the information that you're asking for in terms of the ecology will be dealt with by Natural England under the licence. So we can't reasonably ask for any more information.
Right, thank you for that.
If I might come back with the reason. The fact that this application has been rushed to committee before it going through
not a reason to defer
proper
it.
Licensing application with Natural England is putting the cart before the horse. It's rushed. There are other holes in the application. We've deferred other things, based on, whether an application seems watertight or not. And this just, there's too many holes in this. There's too many concerns. What about legal issues when, the Wildlife and Country Act says you're not to disturb a badger set, within 30 metres. And that includes excavating. And I know, you say we're not to determine things on other legal grounds, but it's just so blatantly clear this is putting the cart before the horse, and we need more information to be able to properly vote on this. No, including what Councillor Wing raised about the application form, the declaration of some familial or relationship between the applicant and the LPA, which is not clearly explicitly stated in the application. So we're not to know what that relationship is. Is there a family relationship between, the agent, the applicant and the LPA? I can't with good conscience vote on that with such a hole in the application, badger set, aside.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Llewellyn to answer some of those points. Thank you, Llewellyn.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Traw. I just want to clarify a couple of things. Nobody can apply, Natural England will not grant a licence until planning permission is granted for the works that require the licence. That is the legal way forward. So you could submit the licence in advance of getting planning approval, but they won't consider it fully until there is planning permission in place for it. So I think we're not putting the cart before the horse in that matter. We're following the legislation that's required in the decision-making framework. On the 30-metre aspect, that is a 30-metre exclusion for for disturbance during construction. There wouldn't be any disturbance from construction from the north because there's no construction happening along the towpath or within the canal itself. What we have is a 30-metre exclusion and beyond, given the line of the cleft pallet fencing, where construction would be happening, so that during the construction phase of the development, the badgers would not be disturbed. That fencing would obviously remain in place, no doubt, which would protect them further, but the 30 metres, the reason our consultants and Natural England are happy with the proposals is it does meet the terms of the Countryside and Wildlife Act, which requires that no disturbance happens during the construction phase, hence the 30 metres to the south. There can't be disturbance from the north.
The response, sorry if I may, the response from Natural England was that they haven't looked at this application. It was a stock response saying, so to say that they have no objection to this. But also, how do we as a committee know that there aren't going to be future utility works along that road, which will mean future excavation and disruption of the soil? So what I'm saying is we have enough information here to sort of say, well, it doesn't really seem in keeping with what ought to be approved according to the Wildlife and Countryside Act. So I don't dispute that we could, in theory, grant and ought to grant planning permission if this site was suitable, but it is so blatantly unsuitable, and that is my concern.
Councillor Trelaw, we can't vote and decide on something that may or may not happen. You know, we all know that each application, you know, is dealt with on its own minutes, on its own merit. Now, I am going to go to the vote. You've heard the proposal. Now, all of those in favour of deferment, please show. Those against? Abstentions?
That's 5 for, against 6, abstentions nil.
Thank you. Report. So, can I have a proposer for the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Hills. A seconder? Councillor Miss Carey, thank you. Right, now all those in favour of the proposal, please.
Just point of order, could I please ask for a recorded vote on this?
You need five of you to stand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your request has been granted. So now all those in favour, please show. No, of the vote. We've agreed it's going to be recorded. Do we have to vote on it? On having a recorded vote? Do we have to?
Councillor Martin, I'll have to call out the names and they'll have to
Oh,
give
yeah.
the vote.
No, oh, sorry, I had forgotten that. Yes. Right, in that case, we will be taking a recorded vote for those in favour of the recommendation. Is everybody clear on that? Right, I will now go over to Sue for her sterling job that she always does.
Councillor Brooke.
4.
Councillor Hills.
4.
Councillor Fuller.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Berry. 4. Councillor Miss Carey. 4. Councillor Wing.
Against.
Councillor Philip Martin.
4.
Councillor McConville.
Against.
Councillor Mead.
Against.
Councillor Mayers.
4.
Councillor Trelaw.
Against.
Thank you. That is 4, 6, against nil, no abstentions.
4 for the motion?
Yeah.
And 6 against?
Yeah.
Right. Have we got that the wrong way around?
No, 6, 4.
6 for the motion?
Yeah.
And 4 against?
5 against.
5 against?
Yeah.
So it is approved?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 11 on the agenda is application number 21/1182/FHCON. Princess Parade Promenade, Princess Parade Hythe. Is this going to be you that's going to speak on it? Oh, sorry, David, I keep looking at my notes and the wrong one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a conditions application. On the Princess Parade site, it's for conditions 15, 16 and 17, but it's only part of those conditions. So we're not discharging them at all, we're just approving details that have been submitted to us so far. So we've got the application site. So condition 15 is the site clearance stage only. Okay, it doesn't give full details, but what it does do is it has updated the baseline level from, I think, 2015-2016, and explains how further walkovers are going to be done. So that's site clearance stage only, so before phase 1 we will have more further information. Condition 16 is the ecological method statement. Again, this is for phase 1, but it's largely concentrating on translocation details and construction stage monitoring. Other details will be submitted with other conditions, and further details will be submitted as the application proceeds, and that's fairly common for ecology, as you need the updated surveys each time you consider a phase. So the landscape and ecological management plan will set out how the site is to be managed moving forward, and any issues regarding construction will be set out in the construction environmental management plan, which will also be submitted at a later date. Then going on to condition 17, again only phase 1. It includes soft landscaping. It is high level, as there is all the habitat creation as part of phase 1 is done off-site. So when we assess habitat creation plans for phases 2 and 3, we will have much more detailed information, but as it's all off-site for this phase, KCC Ecology have agreed that this is an acceptable way forward. So that is all we're considering tonight, and not any other part of the development. So just going to start off by showing the constraints plan. This shows kind of different species that have been found on site. The area hatched in blue is bird nesting habitat, and then we've got the area hatched in brown as reptile habitat. The area in this light yellow colour, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but it's this area here that's been identified as badger foraging habitat. And then we've got the and then we've got the areas right here along the canal. You also can see the existing badger entrances. Survey plan was done. The important thing to note about the survey plan is that it doesn't show any significant changes since the previous surveys were done, and it just sets out that areas of grassland, got ruderals, and then various, you've got scrub planting on the hatched area, and then the dotted areas, low dense scrubs. So this is the proposed landscaping, finishes and creation of habitat. There we see these areas are the showing the existing badger sets. This is the one that's just been approved there. We also see we've got existing vegetation retained in dark green at the top, moving down to existing vegetation which is maintained and enhanced with native tree and flood and tree and shrub planting. Proposed planting here in light green, and grass and wildflower here. And then around the margins around the road area, we've also got some grass and see the hedging down here, and then on the bottom you can see the other part of the site. Here we've got protection plan. The areas in the blue and green are the location of fencing. We also show in kind of this the orangey colour here at the top is a 20-metre offset from the canal, and even closer than that we've got the 8-metre offset from the canal. These are the reptile receptor sites. So we've got the application site here, site A, the main site. This area, this is the primary reptile translocation area, just there by the canal. And then set B, which is here, is by the cemetery to the north of the site. And here we've got some photos. There we've had some ecological enhancements ongoing, which means scrub removal and placing some logs to make it to enhance it for reptiles, and that's the two sites. Then we've got the existing, and these are the badgers which we've already seen. This is the one that's just been approved there, and then you see the other sets that are on the site at the moment. Okay, so just a summary. Again, it's only for the site clearance stage of 15 and phases 1 for both 16 and 17, and more information for all these conditions will be coming in either in conjunction with other conditions or for later phases. A lot of the issues concerning this application they're pretty much all technical. It's all based on ecology. So we've been very reliant on KCC Ecology on this application, giving us advice, and they've raised no objections, as well have the Environment Agency and Natural England. So the recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have 3 speakers, and the first speaker is Hilary St Clair, a local resident, to speak against the application. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, councillors. I'm here this evening to vehemently oppose the approval of the details pursuant to conditions 15, 16 and 17 of the planning application at Prince's Parade for the following reasons. The report is 1. Inaccurate, 2. Out of date, and 3. Incomplete. Inaccuracy. This report appears to have overlooked various species that live and thrive on Prince's Parade. The pheasant family that have lived there and thrived for years, known and loved by so many local residents. There are members of the adder family living there, and I have personally seen them along Prince's Parade. Again, not listed in the report. There is no mention of the kestrels that use Prince's Parade. The report erroneously states the Japanese knotweed has been eradicated. This is blatant nonsense, as we are all aware that this invasive species lies dormant for many years. It's out of date. Some of the dates mentioned in this report are more than 6 years old and consequently unreliable. How can this be classed as competent analysis from which to make an informed decision? It's incomplete. As a local resident, I would expect a coherent forward management plan to protect and maintain the long-term viability of the site as mentioned in the ecological objectives in section 115 of the report. Yet there is no such plan. This report has obviously been compiled in haste and not with due diligence. It is plain for all to see that Lloyd Bohr have cut and pasted comments regarding the badgers that relate to a site in West Malling rather than Prince's Parade. It makes one wonder if they have a standard format that they use for all their clients and contracts. Unprofessional, incompetent and unreliable, to say the least. I have delivered a measured and calm objection to this council this evening. I am, however, along with the hundreds of local residents, as evidenced by the strength of protest, angry, aghast, appalled and horrified at the conduct of Folkestone and Hythe District Council in respect of Prince's Parade, and in particular with regard to this proposal. This proposal does not provide protection of ecological environment at Prince's Parade in any way. I therefore urge you to oppose this proposal and defer the application until such time as an up-to-date, accurate and complete report has been properly prepared, along with an in-depth long-term management plan. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Councillor Jim Martin, Ward Member, to speak on the application.
Good evening again, councillors. I speak on this occasion as the Ward Councillor for Hythe. This application should be deferred until reports available to members are brought up to date. All of the reports and data is now out of date because the events on the ground are changing on a day-to-day basis. 270 trees were felled on the north bank of the RMC to prepare the area for the relocation of reptiles. Meanwhile, a secondary site was prepared at the Spring Lane Cemetery. Last week, the relocation site was changed from the north bank of the RMC to the cemetery. This week, it is once again the north bank of the RMC. Meanwhile, I have received a number of complaints from people who have mothers, sons and other relations buried in Spring Lane. The overgrown condition of the cemetery caused great distress and upset to many friends and relations of the people buried there. And then, to compound this distress, when the vegetation was cut back, the plants were left lying all over the graves. This level of insensitivity is inexcusable, but sadly it reflects the haphazard, poorly planned and making it up as you go along approach taken on the relocation of the reptiles. Indeed, the report contains not one word describing the future management of the newly created tussocky grassland prepared for the reptiles. Today, councillors received yet another apology from Tim Madden regarding errors and mistakes made. The details requiring your approval make no mention of the pheasants or snakes or kestrels on the site, but also there is no mention of Japanese knotweed. Over the years, I have personally identified 2 Japanese knotweed outbreaks on Prince's Parade. I have reported both to the council and was pleased to guide the council's environmental team to find both outbreaks. The council's environmental team then began the required treatment to kill the plants. The report says they didn't find any knotweed. Well, they didn't examine the eradication data held by the council, and they certainly didn't ask me. I ask you to defer this until the details can be brought up to date, corrected, and made in a sensible form for members to assess. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillors? Have we got some... sorry, they weren't on my sheet. I beg your pardon. We've got... sorry. You can tell I'm new at this job. Mike Bottomley from the agent to speak on the application.
Good evening again. The Prince's Parade application is now being progressed. The implementation is scheduled to take place next year. Prior to any development commencing, a number of pre-commencement conditions need to be discharged. and this particular application relates to 15, 16 and 17, which are all ecological conditions. The submitted ecological method statement sets out how this part of the scheme addresses the above conditions for the early stages of development. This includes protecting retained habitats and the adjacent canal local wildlife site during the construction and post-development. As the scheme progresses, further information on all these conditions will be required will be submitted with later phases in accordance with the condition wording. This is a discharge condition application, so the principles of development have already been approved under the Hybrid Planning Permission. The relevant statutory bodies have been consulted with on the technical aspects of the proposals, and comments have been incorporated into the final ecological method statement for approval. KCC, Ecology, Natural England and the Environment Agency have no objections to the proposals and therefore consider the technical aspects of the application to be acceptable, and the application should be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. That does conclude the speakers. Now, councillors, over to you. Who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Trelaw.
Well, I think again we've got an application here which seems to have too many holes in it. It's out of date. I don't think it's something that the committee should vote on in its current state. It's asking us to approve the technical details of a scheme, but those technical details appear to be out of date and have holes in it. And again, we can sit around and talk about which bodies have given the stamp of approval or not, but it doesn't supersede the reality of local knowledge and when it comes to connection with space and the homes that these people the area that these people live in and the wildlife that inhabit that area as well. The connection that they have to them is so strong, and I think we've seen that clearly in the noise we've heard from the community. But it just makes it just so much more important to ensure when you're dealing with people's connection to their land and to the local wildlife, their intrinsic local knowledge. We need to make sure, out of respect for our residents, that these hoops that we jump through in getting these stamps of approvals from these bodies and creating these reports, that they are watertight, that they're up to date and they're robust. It's our democratic duty as committee members to ensure that the information we're voting on is absolutely up to date, accurate, watertight, doesn't contain any omissions. I mean, one point that kind of befuddles me, and it is quite a confusing application, but I can't quite get that. We're asking to approve a preliminary ecological appraisal which hasn't actually been completed, and that is required to feed into the ecological method statement. So it seems to be jumping around all over the place. It's not clear. I don't think it's something we should be voting on in its current form, which is why I propose to defer this until we see a better application come to committee.
Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Chair. The wildlife along Princess Parade is so important that we have to ensure that we have all information and relevant information given to us in order for us to make correct decisions. And that's whether you're for or against. Doesn't matter. We need the correct information in order to make decisions. And I think we have heard quite clearly that there are gaps in the information that we are being given, and also things are out of date and need updating. So I would actually support this to be deferred at the moment until such time as those reports can actually be extended and brought up to date. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Miss Carey.
Thank you. I would actually like an officer response on that. It is our officer's professional view that we have sufficient information in this report and that they stand by their recommendation to us.
Can you answer that for us, David, please?
Yes, you'd appreciate that because this is ecology, we're reliant on KCC giving us that technical expert input, and what I've asked them the same question, and what I've had back is that they've got no objections to this being approved. So on that basis, we've made the recommendation to approve for you to approve it today.
Councillor Trelaw.
Well, just to come back to a point that I raised earlier, that if government and statutory bodies have been doing their job for the past 40 years, we wouldn't have seen such a dramatic loss of wildlife in this country. So for me, that reassurance, unless, we can be clear as a committee that there are no omissions, no out-of-date information, it's just not an adequate reassurance in my mind.
Llewellyn, you'd like to speak on that?
I think just to follow up on David's point, thank you, Chairman, is any ecology survey of a site is a snapshot in time, and there are legal protections in place that if it changes between the writing of that document and finding a different species on the site, that still needs to be protected and it's covered by law. It's why planning doesn't overstep secondary legislation which has primacy. We have the purpose of the PEA, the preliminary ecology information appraisal, is to establish what kinds of species need protecting and relocating. My reading of the report is that yes, it has taken its baseline from 2016, but it has also then had a number of 2021 update walkover surveys to establish whether there's any new species. If the protections around birds are around nesting birds, and one needs to make sure that when any tree clearance happens, that those birds are not disturbed during the nesting season. I suppose the point we're making is that this is a snapshot in time of now, and as David has highlighted at the beginning of the presentation, there are more ecological work that would come forward as part of the future phases of the development.
Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Chair. It's been said by, I believe, the Housing Secretary that communities must be at the heart of any planning decision. And I think communities should be put at the heart of this. There are other wildlife. I understand what you're saying, KCC say it's happy, so we're happy, let's go ahead. But this committee should be sure what they're voting on. Again, I'm not sure what I'm voting on. I think we should defer for more information. This is what we need. We need to make proper decisions in this chamber. Not just guesswork, or they say it's okay, well, let's do it. Let's listen to the community. That's what we should be doing, listen to the people. Let's do this right. We've got one chance. There's no second chance. This is maybe our one chance. We're not saying let's not do it, just defer it, get more information. There are kestrels there, I've seen them myself, there are grass snakes, there are pheasants, I've seen them myself. You can't say, they don't exist. They do exist. Every day that kestrel's I'll go running past there. I'll go running, so they are there. Let's give wildlife a little chance. We're not asking it to not happen. We just leave a deferral to look at it again. That's all we're asking for. And give the community a chance to have their say as well. Thank you.
Any other councillors wishing to speak? No, I don't think I've missed anybody. Right. We have one proposal, which is to defer the application. And if I've got this right, I believe it was proposed by Councillor Trelaw and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Is that correct? Right, so all those in favour, please vote. Oh, sorry. Got that wrong way around it. So you're voting in favour of deferral, right? Yeah, okay. And those against?
Here we go, David Munn's puppies.
Yeah, there we go. We go, you voted it, don't worry.
Abstentions?
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Right.
You're not listening to the public, are you?
You're meant to serve us.
You just do
Not
it.
yourself.
Can we please not have interruptions from the public?
You're not listening to the public, are you?
They are meant to serve us, and they are not.
So we now have the recommendation before us.
You're not listening, are you?
Can I have a proposal for the recommendation in the report? Thank you.
Remember who you serve.
Proposed by... We've heard you, and I will not have any more interruptions, otherwise you will have to leave.
I propose acceptance.
Pardon?
I propose.
You proposed,
acceptance.
yes. And do we have a seconder? And seconded by Councillor Ms Carey. Thank you. Right. So now all in favour...
Could I ask for a recorded vote again, please?
Right. So do we have 5 supporters for that? Yeah. Okay. So
Councillor Carey, you support the environment. Put your hand up.
I have asked you not to interrupt this meeting. If you interrupt any more, you will have to be removed. Sue, will you start the procedure, please?
Councillor Brooke.
For.
Councillor Hills. Councillor Fuller.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Berry.
For.
Councillor Miss Carey.
For.
Councillor Wing.
Definitely against.
Councillor Philip Martin.
For.
Councillor McConville.
Against.
Councillor Mead.
Against.
Councillor Mayers.
For.
Councillor Trelaw.
Against.
Thank you. That's 4, 6 against 5.
Thank you. So that is approved. And that is the last item on the agenda tonight.
You gave